To Luke Evans, who raised this issue in Parliament yesterday, joins me now. Good morning to you, Luke. Thank you for your time this morning. I mean, let's get this clear then from the off. You didn't find out that a hotel in your constituency was being used for asylum seekers until your own constituents had to tell you. Is that right?
Yeah, AD, it's lovely to be on and talk about this. Over the last couple of years since I've been elected, there's been a hotel that's been potentially identified to be used to home asylum seekers, but there's been problems with it when it's been assessed and not deemed appropriate for various different reasons. So this has been an ongoing thing that I've raised a couple of times with the Home Office during my duration as being elected as the MP, and I thought it had all been put to bed. So that was why I was so surprised to get a message from a constituent to say that they'd seen asylum seekers going into a hotel. So it's always good to make sure that this isn't just a couple of people trying to make trouble. So you want to check and verify this. So the natural place is the people who are supposed to be told about this, which is by law the likes of the council and the police. So I went off to try and check with them, Hinckley Borough Council, the Leicestershire County Council, the police, none of which had heard anything. And I was the first person who'd raised it with them, which isn't good enough. And actually, it's not acceptable because it's not safe for the people who are there, not for the community either, because we've got to make sure we have the provisions and the services in place to look after people. And so that's why I'm so angry. And you heard it in my voice in the clip that you played. And I'll be following it up with the Home Secretary, because you've got to have communication with all the people to join it all up to make sure that the process works smoothly.
Now, we've been talking about this a lot. I mean, hearing the anger, as you say there, Luke, in your voice there, and about keeping your constituents safe as well. Are you convinced that the government's got a grip on asylum seekers about the whole system and how this is working?
Well, it's keeping everyone safe. Remember, it's going to be tough for people who move to a part of the country they've never been seen before, never experienced, and that's tough to be holed up in hotels. Let's remember, though, this is illegal immigration that people are crossing over. The government last year stopped about 23,000, and already this year we've stopped 30,000 crossings. But people still keep coming over. And in the last recent months, the majority have been Albanians. Now, Albania is trying to join the EU. And so why are we having this situation where 70% of those trying to make the crossings are Albanians? It's just, again, not acceptable. So I was really pleased to see the government made that deal with the French yesterday, which will see a 40% increase in staff going in, joint working with some of the Brits working over on the French side to try and identify people who are coming over. But the key thing is we've got to disband these criminal gangs. And there are 55 groups already been disbanded. But clearly, these groups are making a lot of money. So it's lucrative for them to try and get people across illegally. And the biggest thing that does is it clogs up the system and stops the people who are coming legally.
But this system, sorry, Luke, this system has been, you've been in power for 12 years now. This system has been there. When's someone going to get a grip on it then?
Well, there's been lots of progress being made going forward. So most recently, we passed new legislation called the New Plan for Immigration, the Nationality and Borders legislation, only just over the summer, to get that in place to give us more powers to try and deal with this. Of course, we want to do the Rwanda deal as well, so that people can be processed over there. If they've got genuine claims, they'll come into the UK. But that's being fought out in the courts because there is a difference of opinion. Some people want to have open borders and allow people to come in. Other people think there needs to be a fair system there in place, and I fall on the latter. We need to do our part. We need to be a global player. But at the same time, we've got to have rules to make sure we look after those who are genuine and those who are coming across illegally. And so it is a tough problem. If it was quick and simple, it would have been solved. But we're not the only country suffering with these problems as well, trying to work out how to deal with it.
According to the Home Office, we're spending over £5.5 million a day on hotels. Do you think that is acceptable, Luke?
No.
How do we fix that then? Over £5.5 million a day. There's a lot of anger about that. What would your message be? How do you go about solving that?
Well, absolutely, and this is where joining up the process and the French deal yesterday is part of doing that, to make sure we've got more joint working, trying to make sure the legislation to deal with the likes of the Albanian illegal immigrants that are coming across, because there's loopholes within the law that are being tested and interpreted differently in different parts of Europe and the UK. And it's these kind of things that can really stamp down on it. At the end of the day, we've got to try and make a situation where people don't want to go across the channel and will come across through the legal route. So, for example, we've had the Afghani settlement arrangement where people can come across. We obviously supported Ukrainians. We've got Hong Kong supported to be able to come across as well. So there's lots of ways of coming into the UK for those genuine asylum seekers. The problem is the illegal migration that's breaking the system. And so I'm hoping that the French deal, the change in the legislation, the challenging in the courts, the Rwanda deal will all start to make a difference. But it's not a quick fix, and it is frustrating because at the end of the day, it's costing our taxpayers money to be able to sort this problem out, and that's not good enough.
So, Luke, you're hoping to meet with the Home Secretary to discuss this issue. I mean, what will you say to her?
Well, my key thing is making sure that this process is followed and improved in the future. So for any other constituency MP, remember there's 649 other MPs in the country, aren't going to experience what I've had to do and sort out, and our services. So I want to know what happened with the process, how we're going to improve it and make sure that it doesn't happen again. But also then you need to make sure that if El Shilton is going to be continued used as a hotel there, then what precautions are put in place? Is it the right place for people to be there? And what is the dispersal mechanism afterwards to get people to move on as they pass through and are either granted asylum or failed asylum and sent home?
Luke, thank you ever so much for your time this morning, Dr. Luke Evans. So